So today's topic is about never sweat about pixels again. So that would be the goal. I think I'll give you a little bit of power to, that you don't think about pixels again. And probably I'll take a movie as a metaphor where, I'll try to bring the presentation in a way that you are the director of the design system, and how would you go about making a movie about design system, right? So first thing first, is the first question that comes in is that what is a system? So basically system is something where you have achieved something and then you have a whole process written, and that process basically gets converted into a method. So this method basically helps you to achieve something in a very lesser time, or somewhere which is actually documented or something like that, right? So as it says, a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, or an organized scheme or method. So when basically this is all about the system, but when you actually move around the design world, you get an overwhelming response about design, this term called design system. So then the next thing that you ask is, then what is a design system, right? So over the internet there are a couple of quotes and procedures that people have already written about it, and people say and have their own opinion around design system, because design system itself has evolved, like let's say 5 years down the line when you have a lot of processes coming around and stuff like that. So this is like one of the quote, when you go over the internet and check it out. So UX Spin says the complete set of standards, documentation and principles along with the toolkit to achieve those standards. That is one. And then Mukherjee have written their own stuff around design system, which is, it says, essentially a collection of rules, constructs and principles implemented in design and code. So I mean, these both have their own opinion, and then it just happens when you go and research around design system, right? So what I say this thing is basically design system is a mysterious hero, right? It was a mysterious hero for me because I know the design system is kind of like there, and we wanted it in the company, but when you go and research about it, it basically has a lot of names around it. Like you can see visual language, pattern library, brand guidelines, voice and tone, design language and stuff. None of this, I won't say none of these are wrong, but basically design system is around how you use it as a tool, right? So there is this one example of MailChimp where they have built a design system around just voice and tone, where the whole voice and tone around what kind of copy that you guys need to write and stuff. The company has standardized those things, and even the product people or the marketing people can go around and look at this design system to write something for their product. Whereas this is the most influential design system made by Google called Material Design, and like pretty popular, where this design system just talks about the UI guidelines they want to follow around the material design and stuff, and they talk about the end-to-end process of building a product, right? So these two are design system, but then they're solving two different things in this case, right? Moving ahead, so when you actually move ahead and start writing about a hero, you basically need to understand the problems around it. So I say find your villain's characters. Basically this is the essential part. Why do you need a design system? And basically you're trying to understand the problem around you, right? So in our case, there were 3 villains with us. First one was inconsistency. Do whatever you want, right? And then you have a couple of designers around you and a couple of developers around you. Some or the other way, this is going to happen, right? One designer does this, and then when they evolve, they feel like, oh no, it doesn't look good, and let me just put up my own texture, and then he gets these circles over there because he feels it's really trendy. And this is basically our nature being a designer, that a little bit of evolution is needed. So inconsistency was the biggest thing that we saw. And then again, when you actually ship it to the developers, they have their own opinion again, right? This is the first one. Second one is, so here's a chat going on with 2 developers, where one developer says that, oh no, I've actually built a notification system, and then there's one more developer comes and says, even I did it. So you're basically reinventing the same wheel, and that actually costs a lot. Even though you don't understand this, but there's a lot of moving and forward going on in the process of building the product, right? So second one is inefficiencies. Third one was collaboration. Since our company is global and we have a team in US as well as in India, and we wanted certain set of rules already over there where we can just plug and play, and we take care of the UX, and then these two teams don't have their own story basically. So these were the three things that we wanted as basically were the villains around us. So now, since this is a problem, you can just say we're gonna build a design system which is gonna solve our UI guidelines for Qubole, right? So we call it a space design system at Qubole. So the purpose of the design system is to provide uniform set of guidelines for all valid user interface of Qubole. Since we have parallel products, and then four of us, like we are a team of four, where all of us are being appointed as to solve or design things for particular personas. So yeah, so we needed a design system to get rid of the inconsistencies and all those things. So next is, when you have this philosophy around all of this and you try to sell each other first, being in the design team, okay, we need a design system and all. The second thing that comes is like, who is gonna build it and who is gonna support that thing, because at the end you're actually paying someone who is doing the full-time job of building the design system, because it's kind of really hard to you do your parallel job and then you build a design system. So the next thing is about finding your producers. Who should you sell this to is the first question that comes when you talk about producing it, right? So what I have seen in the hierarchy is basically you need to pitch in three kind of people, and how I have categorized it is basically the hierarchy of your company. So the first ones are people with budget. If I am in the product team, I really need to sell this to our SVP that okay, we are doing something like a design system, something like that, and we need someone who is dedicatedly going to work with it, right? So first one are the people with budget, and then the second one is people with authority. People with authority is someone like the engineering managers of the different teams, right? If you go and sell them to this that okay, we are doing something like this, can you talk to your team and then get it adopted, because some of the other way you're basically asking the high authority people to just go and talk to their team members. And of course, people in need is basically our friends, which are the devs and the designers. Go talk to them, because if there is an enthusiastic guy, he's gonna put it as a virus over it, right? And then everyone starts doing like, okay, you know what, the other team is adopting this design system, and we also need to do it. So yeah, people in need. So going ahead, if you're gonna, like when people ask, like the major people where you go and sell this to are like two kind of people. First is the developers, and the second one is the business, because developers are the first one to buy it and they are the actual users around it, right? So how do you sell this to a developer is basically less time to figure out on how you're gonna implement this, because the component is basically ready and you just need to plug and play. That's it. Refactoring the code, because most of the time when you do the PRs and stuff or check the code and or the code review which goes around, you basically go and see if the buttons are working or right or wrong, and you basically spend a lot of time over there. So you need not to do that, and then more consistency in the work. Of course, you're going to deliver a lot of high class UI design and stuff, because most of the things are already prepared and you just plug in and play, right? And then how do you sell a design system to business is very sorted. Basically, you're gonna tell them the money is basically gonna use at the right moment, and the time spent is gonna be less. So basically, you're delivering more, right? The best dialogue that you can put around this is basically gradual growth of design system is equal to gradual decline in inconsistency plus gradual increase in the speed of the software development. That's the basic thing that you can go and just talk about it. Basically, you need something to showcase people that okay, this is how the design system is going to look like and stuff. So basically, don't be lazy, don't talk too much, and just go and put on a pilot show and bring all the stakeholders together. So here are a couple of explorations that we were doing, and this is the time when I was doing internship, and yeah, the design looks like this. We did a lot of, like, you can see the variations that are coming around, right? We did a lot of iterations around how the design would look like and stuff. We basically did a lot of UI designs around how the product looks now and then how it should be. Then the first phase came where we tried to collect from those redesign. We tried to collect the typography scale and the colors and all those things, the basic things, just to showcase how the design system would look like, or how the pattern library basically looks like. So here are a couple of, so we basically sat it and set it up in a image and tried to sell it. Right, so yeah, these were a couple of them. Then moving ahead, you now need to get a couple of actors in your team, because you know who is going to be the hero, you know who is going to be the villains. Now you need the supporting actors, right? Who are these supporting actors? Basically, one of those is the interface inventory. So interface inventory is basically a point of discussion where you and your team goes on an audit. Audit in a sense where you go to the product and just check out what are the components that we already have, right? You go, put up your sketch file and take a couple of screenshots and put it in one place, right? So these were like a couple of components that we picked out. There were many, but I have just spaced out a couple of them. So like the list view is there, and then we have tabs, we have the header, there's certain side of variations in buttons and stuff. So once you have this whole inventory, basically go ahead and make a list of components that you need, and go in a very detailed way that, okay, if there's a loader, what kind of loaders you need, and then you have the list view, then an item over, item selected, go very deep in that, and then what kind of states you need, because this inventory is gonna come later also. So that's why it's kind of very, very important that you spend a lot of time in building the inventory, right? So next is basically shape your movie crew with building blocks. Basically, you need a movie crew around to define certain things for the movie, right? So you need a lot of other things that shapes your design system. So you basically get started with the color palettes, right? So the first thing is go back to the inventory. You might go for a redesign, let's say, and because that's the best time you think that, okay, the product needs a little bit of changes and stuff. So that's the best time that you invest on these things, because once you have a design system, it's kind of like later on it gets a little difficult to change those things. But yeah, so at this time try to explore a lot of it, and then go to your interface inventory, check out your primary and base colors, and then set that up. In our case, these were the primary and the secondary color, right? So then and also, like, design system is all about putting up a culture in your or basically a design language that you need to build on, right? It's not about the UI kit that you're making, or it's not even the code, it's the design language that you're evolving. So naming conventions kind of becomes a little important, because you gotta set up a language where the designer and the developer are speaking the same language. So what we did is that rather than talking in terms of the hex codes, what we have done is basically given a pet name to these hex codes. So we don't go and talk, okay, I need this hex color. We don't go and talk like that. We basically say, space dusk blue, I just need that, or what is the variable for that, right? So basically build a kind of language within your company so that the developer and the designer speaks the same language. Yeah.
So you mind asking right now?
What? Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I was wondering, like, you have something like a vermilion red.
Yeah.
So later on, if that color changes, everywhere that space vermilion red variable is used, you have to go in and sort of replace it.
So yeah.
Yeah. I guess you already know what my. So the idea is, like, it's still kind of time consuming to do that. So why not name it something like secondary color 1? Or
so they can be one
light and things like that.
So there are two ways to set up your color systems. One is go for a functional way, there's a functional way to do it. Is basically you have a couple of shades. Let's say from 0 to 100, there are a couple of shades of one color, right? So from 0, let's say you use green. You say green -20, green -30, green, and according to the opacity that happens. So that is one way to pull out this thing. The second way is, since these are variables, so it kind of becomes easy to go and change that one hex code, because that's the whole goal of making these things as variable, right?
Yeah.
So as you said, it kind of become little difficult, but then at the end, variables are basically used for that. So even if it's just one color, that basically you just need to change that one hex code in that particular variable, because that variable would have been inherited in a couple of other places.
Right.
So the whole goal of using the preprocessors or the SAS files or SCSS files are basically that only.
Right.
So
you use like this is just a variable name that you use in every variable.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah, but let's say there are like two teams of developers using the same variable, and then you update this particular file, and now it doesn't have space Vermilion red. Now it has
that's
space
something that you
red.
that's something you need to embed as a core in your
this variable is always going to this contract that you have.
Right.
So don't you think changing or updating updating is the best word I can think of.
So
it becomes a little difficult as you go forward.
No, I don't think basically, because when you are naive, right? Let's say when you are open to it, you don't have a design system.
Yeah.
You have thousands of hex codes just for grading.
Right. Help companies. There are two parts to it. So firstly, or two different types of design systems. One is when you already have a product that is in production and running for like a couple of years at least, and now you think about doing a design system. So then the design system, whatever you build, will change less frequently, because your product has been there in the market for 2 years and you have been designing it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Now you do the inventory, etc., and it will be less frequent that you need to add a completely new color, because you know what the kind of use cases you have been solving. If you're doing a design system at the starting of a product development, then your design system will need to keep on evolving continuously, and then you would need to keep adding new colors almost every other month.
Also, like you already have the base. The product looks like this, and then you get the inventory out of it, right? Once you have the inventory, since the company has existed for 7 years, you cannot go and change at another level, like okay, next thing. And then the design system itself takes a long time, right? It is not just building those things, and then like even moving ahead, you will basically see how we go and test those things also. So you have like rigid pattern that you get it from the test and stuff. So yeah, this thing probably not come like let's say you have like right now you have implemented it after 6 months. It's not going to happen, because it's basically tested out, right?
So one thing that he pointed out was that a company that has been running for let's say 6 years, building a design system for them is slightly easier than let's say a company that has been in
the initial
market,
stage,
let's say for the 1 year only.
So building is completely different. Building is difficult because you need a lot of adoption, because now you're saying every other product or every different team already has something. Now for building it's easier, but for getting it adopted is difficult. But if you get it done, then it will be like.
So I would say the opposite. At least nowadays, people understand the requirement of a design system, so they are willing to adopt it. But a company that is in let's say 1 year stage and going on to until let's say 2.5, 3 years, their product evolves so fast that there is, if you start building this variable, if you start building a component system for them, it will just the variable, just the color code, it will be at least 10 times larger than this. And even if you try, that was going to be my question on them, like how do you solve that? Like how do you start cutting them out? Because at some point you do need that color. At some point you do need that. That usually happens once the product has been stabilized and it hits a let's say 5 year, 6 year mark, and the customers are focused. Okay, this is what the product is going to be, and they're okay with it. Like a minor color a slight inefficiency in that color choice here is okay with the product requirement. Whereas in the case of initial first year, we might need 4 shades of black,
Yep.
because depending on the color, background color, we might need to change it. So like again, this might be a long discussion on it, which we
Yeah.
could choose to answer it later.
Yeah.
But what is like your recommended point?
Yeah.
Like when do we start building up a design system?
I kind of have that answer, but let's take it. Like I need a whiteboard to explain.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So next things next is basically the typography. Choose a typeface. In our case, it was Helvetica New, and then you have the base things like Arial and all those things, which is set it up in your CSS, so that if it falls back, you can just take care with that. Decide a type scale using your interface inventory, because since you have the whole research done using the interface inventory, you can see the variations of typography that you already have in your product, right? So in our stage, there were like these kind of categories that we had, like 18 pixel and then regular 18 pixel, 16 pixel, and then like bold, large, medium, and kind of like that, right? So go as detailed as possible, because at the end, the person who is consuming it should know where this kind of typography scale are used, right? Set up a naming convention for that too. Sit with your developer and try to come up with a design variable kind of thing. So you can see here in our sketch system, basically what we have done is that if I selected this, we have this thing automated ready, that if the user needs certain side of scale, we just go and set this up and then choose it from here. Set up a CSS preprocessor, sit with your dev again, and then try to understand that we have the base thing and then you have these variables around there. So it kind of become again easier for the developer and the designer talks the same language. So yeah, next thing is having your iconography perfect as possible, because that's the basic thing which is used throughout the product. And then the icon thing is like sometimes you feel it's very less, and then sometimes if you have a bigger one, you feel like okay, what to choose, right? So that happens. So in our case, what I did was I used a feather icon kind of library, where they just have 224 or 200 plus kind of like.
It's really nice.
Yeah. So yeah, even I liked it is because two things is first, even if I need a customization, it's easier that they don't have a lot of things with their icons, but I can go and just copy paste their path and all those things. So it's kind of easier to choose a smaller library kind of thing, so that you have the base ready and have couple of icons around there.
So do you complete it in this library, or do you also do your own?
Yeah, so we have the base from here, and then if we need customization, we can just go and check the path and all those things, and then make it around. Because since we have the grid and all from there itself, right? So it's kind of easier. So what we do is next is basically implement it in our design system in a way that you have all the icons ready, and then the best part for feather icons is that they have an inbuilt library for Sketch also, so you can just go and import it. So yeah, so in this case you can see like I've selected the button, and then we have all those symbols coming up that if you need to change the icon over there. So yeah, and what next I have done is basically embedded the whole site itself in our design system, like the website. The developer can go and just type in and get the icon from there. So yeah, now designing components using atomic design. So this term atomic design is kind of came from this guy called Brad Frost, who says as the craft of web design continues to evolve, we are recognizing the need to develop thoughtful design systems. So he's the one who actually brought up this atomic design theory kind of thing. And how I summarize it is basically, and why you should use it is basically build components that talk to each other. Because when you're actually building these components, you basically go and do it individually. And then somehow again you need to come back and see if these components are working together or not. So how do you go about it? It's basically so atomic design system is basically divided into like 4 kind of categories or a step. First is atoms are basically the basic HTML tags. Just go user interface inventory and try to build up small components around it. and then merge these two. So these are basically called molecules, where you combine those two basic HTML tags and then combining it like molecules combining atoms to do something together and define meaning. So here's this first phase where you actually use two different things and try to make a meaning around it. Third one is basically organisms, where you build up more components and use the basic one, use your another component and place it over there if this is working right or not, right? And then the fourth one is templates, where you grow up your the components to the pages, right? So basically use this method to see if the whole design system is working together or not, right? So these are a couple of things that we have done, a couple of components that we have built. So the next thing is test, iterate, test again using accessibility. This is kind of like really important, because when you're building a design system, you have that position to actually work on accessibility, because it's kind of get important in the product, right? So you can basically go around looking for there are a couple of standards which in the web it's already there. The one is like W3C and all, and the second one under that mostly what people follow is the WCAG, is basically web content accessibility guidelines. So yeah, I mean in terms of so here are like a couple of examples that we look around. Is basically so this is the first one, is add enough color contrast. It's not just the color that you're using, but also the typography state you can look at, right? And there are like a couple of websites where you can go and check these color contrast. One is WebIM, where you can go and check if it is passing AA or AAA standards. Mostly AAA standards are used in the government websites because they tend to load faster and stuff. That's the reason. But since we are kind of trendy, so yeah, it's fine if you go for AA standards also, right? Second one is don't use color alone to make critical understanding. So when we were testing all around this, so this was the first one that we gave the user to look at, right? And then in this case, these were circle, and coincidentally the user was colorblind. Okay, so in this case what happened is that he was seeing the circle, but he can't figure out that this was a failed a query or something like that, and this is the success one. So later on we got to know that these things they can be kind of users who are color contrast and stuff, like colorblind and stuff. So we went on to make icons so prominent that okay, the X actually denotes that it is not working, or it's not working right now, and then the loader is basically indicating that this query is running. The done one are basically the successful queries. So it's kind of important to go back, reiterate in terms of the accessibility.
So just to add a point, there are a couple of apps that you can use, which just change your screen to look like how a colorblind person would observe it, and that's very helpful.
And then a couple of like guidelines also say that you need to have keyboard shortcuts and stuff, because you might have seen like a couple of websites don't optimize their drop down a lot. They just use the basic HTML one, is because using this tab you can go and select it, but if you customize it you cannot. So these kind of things also comes into accessibility. So yeah, that can be a good point. Yeah, right now it's the fun time and time to shoot your movie. So choose your tools. I mean, in our case, we sat around and then they are basically any tool you can choose any tool, but then you need to sit with your teammates and then come up with one tool that you want to choose. So Zeppelin we were already using it, and the Sketch we were already using it, and then for documentation there are a couple of frameworks that allows you to keep a component within there and then just type in the documentation that you need to write. But in our case, we did use a documentation generator which was open source. So use the power of Sketch, and what we have done is basically made it highly customizable, where the user comes and just pull out the form and goes around and just change those things, so that it doesn't pull out the form fields and the pixels again and again. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the examples. So yeah, we use Zeppelin to sync the design system. Basically, Zeppelin is kind of like our developer now have built it up a habit from a very long time of using Zeppelin. So what we thought is basically, use Zeppelin itself and to document it further, right? So what we've done is basically used the style guide thing and then made this variable properly documented over there, so that when you go ahead and like let's say in this case the button is selected, the outer layout for the button is selected, and it's actually showing you the space, the variable which is attached to it. So it's kind of automated. So we tried to document it over there. And then in this case also, if like this text is kind of selected, so it tells you like, okay, this is the variable that you need to use and what is the pixel size over it, and which exactly typography scale has been used over here, right? So yeah, finally documentation. Yeah.
Have you tried? Now they have implemented components as well in Zeppelin. Have you tried?
Yeah.
It's really nice. Like,
Yeah, I think they recently launched it, and I was actually
they launched it kind of 5 to 6 months back, I guess.
Okay.
But we are also using it right now. So Zeppelin has done this very nicely. If you go on input field, it will show you which input field component you are using. And if you have a common language across design and engineering, then it will be just adding to this point. Like these are at very molecular level. Sir, these are at very atom level kind of thing. Then
You can just-
that is also a good thing that I have.
I haven't tried it, but we were actually thinking around to actually store these things. And then once I was also checking out XD, they also have a very inbuilt, in their.
No, I don't know about this.
Yeah, even I think it's like we wanted to flick around that, but then it doesn't happen. Sketch is love.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah. Finally, the documentation, the heart of the design system, because that as much as possible. If you don't document it, doesn't exist. Because at the end, it's about educating the person who is going to come and use your components, and it's kind of very really important that you go and document these things. So yeah, at last we had the hero, and it's basically called a space design system. We're kind of live in a subdomain of Firebase. So yeah, this is how it looks like. We have all the components set up over here, and then these are the color palettes that we have already had. So either they can go over here, or we also have like for each component. So for each component, most of the things are synced. Like if the user is in color palettes, they can just go click on Zeppelin and then they get the redirection over here. Most of the things are done. So even let's say even for the illustration style, right from the color theory that we're using over here, and then we say where to use it and all those things. These are like a couple of artworks that we have done. And design system also helps you to onboard designers also. So what we have done is basically set up a sample file over there, and then you can go and download it from here. So coming to the elements, as I said, most of the things are documented in terms of the font weight should be bold if the background is this and all this stuff, right? So yeah, you can go and check it out if you want.
So this is like have you open sourced this?
No, not yet. We are planning it too, because most of the components we are building in Ember, Ember front end. Yeah. So we are thinking to make it like open source in the next coming months. So yeah, this is how and what our design system solves.